You are live.
We are live. We are back live. I'll ask the attorney to give a synopsis of our executive session, please.
Sure. I want one correction made as I misspoke. The lawsuit that I referred to, which is Richard Cavalier versus Warren County. It's the Board of Elections, not the Board of Ethics. There's also a lawsuit against Broome County, Schoharie County in New York State Board of Elections as well, to clarify. Additionally, there was further discussion regarding the Laney Morgan litigation in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals that occurred during the executive session. Thank you. And no action was taken.
Thank you. Reading of any communications,
None this meeting.
reading of resolutions.
One proclamation and proposed resolutions numbers 500 through 513 were distributed to the Board of Supervisors and posted to the Warren County website on Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, meeting the requirements and the rules of the board. The proclamation before you is declaring October 10th, 2022 to be World Mental Health Day in Warren County. Resolution number 515 was distributed to the board and posted to the website on Wednesday, October 5th, which was after the mailing deadline. So a motion to waive the rules on that one is required. That waiving the rules resolution is in your packet, labeled as 514. You need a motion on that.
You have a motion to waive the rules. Motion by Supervisor Bruno, second by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Okay.
Next.
Resolution 517 is the result of action taken at this morning's personnel meeting. A finance meeting. A motion is needed to waive the rules relative to the distribution deadline. That resolution is in your packet as resolution 516.
Motion to waive the rules by Supervisor McGowan. Do we have a second by Supervisor Frazier? Any discussion? All those in favor? Signify by saying
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
There are also two floor resolutions in your packet. One waiving the rules because it did not go through this didn't go through the established committee structure. And that's floor resolution number 1. Floor resolution number 2 is authorizing the chair of the Board of Supervisors to act as Warren County's representative to vote at the special election on the formation of the North Creek Sewer District in the town of Johnsburg. So you need a motion to bring floor resolution number 1 to the floor.
We have a motion to bring forward resolution number 1. Motion by Supervisor Bramer. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor McGowan. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Floor resolution number 1 is now 518, and then motion for floor resolution number 2.
Floor resolution number 2. Motion. We have a motion by Supervisor Thomas, second by Supervisor Runyon.
Yeah.
Correct. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
Floor resolution number 2 is now 519.
Public comment on resolutions. Anybody wish to discuss any resolution? Okay, Supervisor. Yes, go. All right, Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would like the board to consider on resolution 511. We have a number of EMS squads in our county, all with tremendous need, operational and equipment needs, including, I might add, Queensberry and Glens Falls. So I'm just of a mind that if we're going to provide, I mean, my understanding is that Queensberry is actually going through the tax cap, because of some of the costs associated with their budget this year, which includes funding of their squads. So I'm just and I certainly support our squad. And Warrensburg could use $75,000 to help with its EMS, and Warrensburg provides services to both Stony Creek and Thurman on top of Warrensburg. So I think that this resolution should be amended to include all the EMS squads and including Glens Falls. And I know the mayor probably could well entertain $75,000 worth of revenue to help with your emergency rescue, which is in terms of their responses is the largest in the county. So, I mean, I know that some of them didn't apply. I get that, and maybe they didn't know about it. Maybe some did. But I think that fundamentally, we have Lake George just went to a municipal operation. Dennis, I'm sure you could do $75,000 for operational or equipment needs in terms of Glens Falls, Lake George as well. And I know we have Lake Luzerne as well, Hadley Luzerne. I'm sure you could use $75,000 and that would be an excellent appropriation of ARPA funds to our EMS squads, particularly in this time of need. And let's not forget the role they serve in terms of healthcare in this county. I mean, it's enormous. And then we have our squads providing response to mutual aid to municipalities where they don't have service or their ambulance is providing service somewhere else. So then we got to provide mutual aid. So, that would be a lot of money. I know it'd be more than $75,000, but I think I don't think there's any question that the need has been there. And we have had numerous meetings where all of this need has been clearly identified and outlined. So, my feeling is that that we should amend this resolution to include all our squads. And again, I know it's a large sum of money, more than $75,000, but I would at least put that out on the floor.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you very much. Of course, I would be happy to support the other squads and certainly the Glens Falls squad being a Glens Falls representative. I do want to mention that one is coming through now because it did bubble to the top of the priority list. We do have other ARPA requests from West Glens Falls Emergency Squad, Bay Ridge Rescue Squad, Bay Ridge Volunteer Fire Company, as well as I think Warrensburg, I'm not seeing it right now, but I'm positive Warrensburg had one in there too, Emergency Medical Services, yes. And they are of varying ranges, some as little as $13,000, others going up to almost $50,000. Warrensburg was $150,000 request. So I would say if we're going to amend it, that we do be consistent and maybe look at something like 25,000 for all the squads and then maybe we could still come back and look at the other ones that have specific requests that are in the ARPA list.
I think that's a reasonable.
Why don't we table it?
So Supervisor Diamond, he had his hand up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My colleague here to the left has put a motion for a recommendation, and I would be more than happy to second your amendment to that resolution. I think it makes sense right across the board. Every one of these response units, including the city's paid EMS program, give them $75,000. I agree with that 100%.
So is that in a
I
form
would
of,
second his.
is that in a form of a motion?
It is.
And that's a second to
That's
the
a
motion.
second to his motion.
We have a motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion. So I saw a lot of hands go up. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was at that upper mini when we allotted that, and my feeling was really, it's quite a list, and I don't think anybody really realizes it, but there was actually two. There was one roughly for $3 million, which was a priority, and then there's another one for over $15 million, which some of the other EMS fell under. And I didn't feel comfortable. With this is, I believe, it's kind of stated to be just for an ambulance. So, and I think the stipulations was that, and I could be wrong, but I would like to see this pulled back and we look at all the EMSs together because, we got $18 million out there. We have $4 million to play with. So, something, and we've already spent over $1 million, just about $1 million. I think we have like $3 million and change left in the ARPA funding is where we stand now. But I did, unfortunately, I missed a meeting yesterday, so I'm not sure if we spent any more yesterday. But the last update I have, because I hadn't had a chance to review yesterday's meeting. But I can't support this if we're gonna look at the other EMS. $75,000 across the board for all of them is a lot of money, but I do believe that some of the ARPA money should be going to our EMSs. We just gotta figure out how much is fair for all.
Mr. Chairman, if that's a motion, I'll second it.
We're on discussion right now. Supervisor Molino.
Yeah, I agree with this conversation, and I agree 75 might be hard to do for all these squads. But Michael Zane squad just submitted their budget. It's $100,000 more than last year to put some money for an ambulance and move up the salaries we have to pay these EMS people. So it's tough. So, but 75 might be a lot, but a compromise of 50% of what we're talking about, or 50,000. I would love to see that.
Hold on. Supervisor Seaver. Motion table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm encouraged by the discussion to help so many entities in our community respond to the pandemic. But what I'm concerned about and where I would have a problem getting behind this is that we're talking about the committee structure, correct? So now we have a discussion happening after you've had committee members that have reviewed applications, applied a scoring mechanism, and we have advertised to our community for a year and a half that these applications and funds were available. Each community has different needs. And if I'm going to make a decision here today about the needs of my Queensberry EMS, I would like to go back to them and say, what will 75,000 do? Are you able to combine this all together and do something? But I know here they've put in just one, our fire departments, our EMS squads. I think what we're starting to travel down here is just sounds like a good idea. Let's give some more money. And I heard here today this big argument about pause. The problem I have with this, and if we're going to pause, be fair, pause across the board. But you want to move forward with more funding for applicants that haven't applied for funding yet, which could be very worthy. And I'd love to hear more about it, but maybe we could also help them with direct money. We have an EMS committee, right? We haven't met in 2 years unless these meetings take place without us being here. So my concern today is pause. Let's pause all our committee meetings. Finance, there isn't one Queensberry representative on the finance committee. We make up 44%. Why of the population? Why do we not have representation on such an important committee? I'd like to hit pause. I'd like to hit pause on many other committees that we continue to not be able to have our voices heard and represent our constituents. Let's hit pause. If you'd like to hit pause today on ARPA and invite every single applicant to the full board to speak with us, fantastic. Let's hit pause. But let's be fair about it, because right now we're being very selective and unfair to those applicants and to our community that we went out and we asked for help. So as far as I'm concerned, let's go right ahead and hit pause, supervisors. Let's do it across the board, and let's just meet as a full board and put a pause on all of our committees so we can all have our voices here heard, and maybe just have 3 or 4 meetings a month. I'm happy to put that forward as a form of a resolution or a motion.
Okay, we have that. Any other discussion on this? Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I'm on the contrary, I'm not recommending pause at all. I have the recommendations of the committee, and part of my responsibility is to take a look at these, and when I look at this, obviously some other supervisors share this, that we have a number of EMSs all in the same boat in this county, all needing resource of all types for equipment and operational needs. I think the motion is to provide the 75 that we would for North Warren, provide each and every one of our others, Lake George, Fulton, all of them, Warrensburg. I mean, in the north part of the county, Warrensburg does more runs than any other EMS district there is. They provide the runs to the other municipalities. God forbid they're not unable to provide that service, and the same in Bolton and Lake George. They just have brought it into the municipal operations, an enormous expense. So I'm saying, I know we're talking a goodly amount of money here, but it would be money well spent. And I think the community would well understand our support of our EMS operation. And I would encourage a vote on this today on the 511.
I would just caution, we should know how much we are talking about and how many, EMS agencies are discussing that. I mean, I think that's a responsible thing to know how much money and how many EMS agencies we are talking about. So Supervisor Bramer had your hand.
Thank you. On the amendment, I do support the idea of giving some of ARPA funds to the other agencies. I think it's important that we have an idea of what the dollars are. And I also agree with my colleague from Queensberry that if we're going to use the committee structure, we should use it. Or we're just going to throw the whole thing out. And I've wanted this for ages. Go to a legislative board, let's have full board meetings and get the work done at a full board every time. But we're not going to do that. Let's send this back to committee. The ARPA committee can reshuffle and relook at this one and then bring it forward properly up to the full board.
We have.
that.
So is that a motion to table by Supervisor Bramer to bring it back
Yes.
to committee?
Second.
By Supervisor Thomas, to bring it back to committee? Any discussion?
On the motion, I can support that. Let's send it back to committee. We don't need the debate to digress into our form of government or whether it's gonna rain tomorrow.
Can we,
The question here is an important question for Glen Falls, it's an important question for Lake George, for
Okay.
Warrensburg and others. And so the idea of tabling, sending it back to committee and saying to the committee, maybe we need a more comprehensive funding stream here. I think is reasonable and I can support that.
okay, we have a motion to table. Can we do a voice vote or you want to do a roll call? All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Opposed? That resolution will go back to committee. Okay, any other discussion on any other resolutions? Supervisor Webb,
Mr. Chairman, 500. Resolution 500 is to the National Association of Counties for $65,000 for mental health training. As I mentioned before, the lack of vetting, I'm not qualified to determine whether this is a great program or not. I know we did have some representative come from NACO to present that to the committee. But my recommendation is to table this, send it to the leaders of our staff, Jackie and the HR department. Maybe we send it to public health for their insights in terms of the validity of this program, and then bring it back to the board next month.
you making that a motion? We have a motion by Supervisor Wow. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Dixon. Discussion. Supervisor Bramer. Or Supervisor Seaver, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure how difficult it is to remember names on this board, but it is Rachel Sieber and that is Claudia Bramer. She represents Glens Falls and I represent Queensberry. This has happened over 30 times where women are called different names. But it's not acceptable. And as it relates to the resolution here before us, all of the committee spent 2 meetings vetting out this. We discussed it at length. We brought in national representatives, and here today you are all asked to vote on a proclamation to support mental health and providing resources and caring about those in need. But yet you want to table a training. But by the way, there's local entities, 15 local providers from the trainer program to go out to all of your communities, Glens Falls and Bolton and Chester and Hague, and provide a training to support them on top of providing training to our county. It was unanimously passed. It was a compromise. And perhaps our board should get in the spirit of a little bit more of a compromise. But to table this today is absolutely ludicrous when we know from our survey results, it is our #1 issue. I would ask you to please not table this today.
Anybody else? Supervisor Driscoll and then Supervisor McDevitt.
Just 2 quick comments. Thank you,
Really?
Chairman. I will be supporting the not-for-profits as presented. I partner and collaborate with most of those. I don't serve on any boards. I don't have any contracts or MOUs with those, so I feel confident that I can vote on those without any type of underlining thing behind that. Secondly, we have some business people here, and even though
Ben, we're really talking.
yeah, I know.
It's gonna take-
I've reviewed the situation with one of the businesses. The way that the federal funds in the past have worked is if there are 10 questions and you check off positively on 9 of those, but not the 10th, you don't get the money. You fall between the cracks. You may be contributing, as this particular business is, to the economy, but you're just not in on that money. So I think that there's to look at a business that is doing good work, but just wasn't qualified based on the federal guidelines for that assistance in the past. I think it's to their advantage to have applied for the ARPA monies and be considered through that process.
Okay, but we're really talking about the motion at the table, and Peter, you had your hand up.
Yes, I basically, the issue of mental health is a no-brainer. We all of the components necessary to support mental health are clearly have to be addressed. I do have a concern on who indeed administers the program initially. I believe that we are more than qualified in this county to have our local mental health organization continue to monitor this program over a period of time. So we have the local resource in place, knowledgeable, good mental health professionals. Let's use them and let's stay local in terms of administration. So I think I would support the tabling at this point.
Okay, Supervisor Brown.
Thank you so much. I think it would be a tremendous benefit to our local providers to have them be trained by a nationwide organization of professionals who they do this all the time for county governments. And I do think we should move forward on this. NACO is again, a nationwide recognized association of professionals that serve counties. And it only serves to benefit us to bring in outside expertise. It's not to say anything bad about our local people. They are great. And they will be trained to provide further training. I think this is a great program.
Supervisor Merlino.
I just have a simple, I didn't make all the meetings. I try to make some on resolution 505.
Nope.
About the Habitat for Humanity.
Jane, we're talking about the motion at table.
Sorry, I thought you finished. I'm sorry.
I thought so too.
Any other comments on the motion at table? Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. I am not in favor of tabling this. I was at the ARPA meeting. I did watch the meeting from NACO, and what they are offering our community is the help needed to train, to help more. And to me, from the understanding of what I've got out of the meeting, was this is a plus win for all of us. And it's nothing against mental health, but it's also bringing in some of the outside that, this is a nation crisis. All right, it's a world crisis. And, all the help we can get is so favorable in our direction. So I will not support the tabling and look forward to moving on with this.
Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. Just briefly, our local mental health director supports this initiative, Rob York. If you ask other community, Wagner, who is here today or was here, he'll tell you that there was support across not only ARPA board, but throughout the entire community. Our not-for-profits are slim on resources and funding. This provides them a free training for Train the Trainer to go out and reach everyone in our community. It's an incredible resource. I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Supervisor Beatty. Did you
Yeah, just one final comment. There's numerous counties across the country that are taking up this program. One county is spending 250,000, I think it was 200 or 250 on this program for a more detailed and more inclusive program, even than what we're going to get. So, it doesn't make sense, but Warren County, but let's go forward.
Last word on the motion to table.
Mr. everybody supports mental health support. And recognize, my motion to table wasn't to say we don't want to do this. My motion to table was saying, are these the right individuals? Is this the right tool? We need to get our people to vet this, to say, yes, this is the one. Maybe there's another. That's the only motion to table. Take a look at it before we spend the money. Thank you.
I will reiterate that Mr. York does support this. Rob York does support us going forward with this resolution. So we have a motion, we have a second. Let's vote on should we table? We better do a roll call on this one.
This is voting on the motion to table
Motion to
resolution
table.
500. Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Well, I felt this was pressured onto me, but I'll say, no.
Ms. Runyon? No. Mr. Conover?
No.
Mr. Leggett,
No.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
No.
Mr. Bruno,
No.
Mr. Driscoll,
No.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
No.
Mr. Wild,
It doesn't matter, does it really? Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
I believe my no vote does absolutely matter. Thank you for this, supporting, not to table it. No, to be clear.
Chairman Garrity.
No.
Okay, so the motion to table fails.
Motion to table fails. Any other discussion on any other Supervisor Molina? You have
I just got a simple question on the Habitat for Humanity. It has Northern Saratoga and Washington County. Have you asked if they were getting money from those counties also?
Oh, Gene.
I mean, if yes, that's fine.
I do not have in front of me all of the funding materials. I believe there is a person here from Habitat who might be able to answer that question. I will say to you, to my colleague from Lake Luzerne, that the project with the housing will be in Queensbury. And I know that they have partners and they're looking at an entire funding package. If you want to say anything more, probably the chairman would allow you to do that.
Sure. Somebody wants from Habitat want to speak about the program, please.
Short summary. Hi, I'm Jovita Wenner. I'm actually a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, so I'm not a paid employee or a consultant of the organization. I'm from this area. I actually grew up in Saratoga and now live in Queensbury. And like several people, I come back because it's a great place to live. After raising my kids in DC for 30 years, I came upon Habitat, and this was the first project we talked about. And basically, the plan is to build at least 26 units in a condensed area, condominium style. That's already been approved, by the way, as far as a plan. And I come at it from a funding perspective, and there is a complete finance package to not only build this community setting for affordable housing, which we all know from top to bottom, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, it doesn't matter. It's a problem in this area. It's also a federal problem. So the answer is yes, there is a finance package. The person in charge of Habitat is a finance person from Lehman Brothers. So he's got the banking background as well as development background. The point is we're seeking people to come to this community from outside of just Queensbury. So we are recruiting family members from Saratoga, or with mostly single women with children who work in the area but can't afford to live in the area. So the whole county, I think 12 areas of the county is actually covered, and we recruit families and individuals from those areas.
Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, just as a comment, I've watched Capitol Hill hearings for 30 years, and this is very much the same type of conversations they all have. So kudos to this group. It's a healthy discussion. It's democracy at work. So.
Thank you. Yeah. Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I did call them. And they were getting funding from, seeking funding from Saratoga and so forth. So this was a collaborate request from one county, but they were going to other counties too.
Thank you. One Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a housekeeping, a question. We show 509 and 512. Are those identical?
They're not,
No.
they're two separate funding requests.
They're two separate funding requests, okay? From High Peak Hospice, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Just checking on that. Thank you.
Supervisor Bramer.
On the new one for North Creek, Chairman, I just offer, I know Supervisor Hogan said she would be happy to cast the ballot since she's already up there.
No, I'll do my job.
Okay,
I'm going up.
great.
My parents grew up there. Important to me too.
Good.
Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment on these ARPA resolutions. I thought long and hard about this. Initially, I thought maybe it would be appropriate to table this, give a little more thought, this and that. But as I said, I've talked to a number of people, I've listened, and more than that, we did appoint this committee, ARPA committee, to study this, look at all the applications, et cetera. A lot of work, and I know that most of them have done a lot of work vetting these applications, selecting them, categorizing them, what have you. So I will defer to them and support most of these resolutions, if not all of them. What we have here is just north of $900,000 all told for the, and I think that leaves roughly, if these are all approved, around 3 million left in that ARPA fund. So down the road, my point is I may take a little harder look at the funding. But additionally, I did not attend very many of these meetings. And I'm a firm believer, if you are given the opportunity to either study or be informed about something and you don't take that opportunity, then you don't have an awful lot to say. I don't know how that sounds, but you know what I'm saying? If the opportunity was there and I didn't attend these meetings and really delve into this, then obviously I have to defer to the committee, which has done a lot of work, spent a lot of time. So just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any requests for roll call votes on any other resolution? No. Yes.
Mr.
Supervisor.
Chairman, we can still talk about resolutions, right?
Sure.
512 is the authorizing ARPA funds to ADK Excursions. ADK Excursions is a private business, as you heard me say earlier this afternoon. I think that we need to vet the businesses that we give money to more thoroughly. Primarily from an optics standpoint.
I-13.
513. So what I would propose is that we table this one for a month and we figure out how we can do that vetting so that they are not. We don't slip into the situation where a business fails and we have to explain to our constituents why we gave us money to a business that failed.
Yep.
I think that's a derelict of duty if we don't do that due diligence. So that's my motion.
Is that a form of a motion?
Yeah.
Do we have anybody who wants to second that
515.
motion on ADK excursions?
I'll second.
So second by Supervisor Thomas, discussion. Yes, Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you. At the appropriate time, I do have a request for a roll call, although I think they all are roll call, correct?
They
all-
Except for the one.
My comment about our small businesses is we've now had 2 meetings devoted to talking about small businesses. When we first started this process, our survey results came back and we all agreed as a board to say, hey, we want to help our small businesses. They're in need. And ARPA initially set aside $1 million to help small businesses. But at the time, the only person that came forward to apply was Doug Miller with the Dome. And, we were all very proud to help as much as we could so that businesses were able to recover and rebound after COVID, businesses that are incredibly important to our community. And we, with our public information officer, went out and asked people to apply. And then we significantly decreased the fund. We went from 12 to what we have about 3.5 left to give. So those small businesses that did apply, they all received significant overall scores. And reading all of those applications and having them here, I mean, many came to talk, but in this particular case, ADK Excursions on 513 has been here multiple times to share their experiences and then also significantly reduce their ask and I would ask that this committee, this board, respect the decisions that have been made out of the ARPA committee. It's very discouraging to see members coming to the table that are on these committees saying hit pause. And once again, if we're going to keep hitting the pause button, I really think we need to reevaluate the pause button and many other options. I hope that you'll continue to support our small businesses in Warren County. Thank you.
Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. I was torn on this one because as part of the process and a chair trying to keep it organized and keep them all together in the same category, I wanted that business one to stay in that category, but it did pass through committee and it was forwarded on because people did think it was a valuable use of our funds. And that also, I will note in the application scoring process, one of the things you have to score is the business's viability and the viability of their project. This went through that process and it got a good score. So I'm going to support it as it goes through today.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yes, I was at Tuesday's meeting also, and I reviewed all these requests, and I'm not opposed to helping these folks out. But at Tuesday's meeting, we went through all the small businesses and we couldn't come to an agreement of what we wanted to do. Well, the way I look at this, the rest of these requests today are non-for-profits except for this one. And that should be thrown back into the small business category, and whatever process or number or percentage or whatever it may be that we come up with, that'll apply to them also.
Just discussion on this motion to table. Any other discussion on the motion to table? Go ahead, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, one more, and maybe I might change my mind if I could ask Co-Chair Bramer to explain the vetting process to everyone of all the small businesses, so that, you know, maybe I'll change my mind.
Go ahead.
Financial vetting process.
Sure. Every application was asked to provide a budget and asked to provide details of their project. And if it wasn't very good and it wasn't very complete, you'd score them lower. You would know that if you had done the scoring.
Any other discussion on the motion to table? Roll call vote.
Okay, who's voting on the motion to table resolution 513 and return to committee? Mr. Beatty,
No.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
No.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
No.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
No.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
No.
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Chairman Garrity.
No.
Okay, the motion to table fails. There are 393 votes in favor.
So it stays on. Any other discussion on resolutions? Okay,
One business.
we vote on resolutions. They're all roll call, most of them.
Let's see.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Great, resolution 500, Arthur, these are all ARPA appropriations through here. So this one's to, for NACO. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Rob's recommendation, yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier. Yes. Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Per Rob's recommendation, also yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Per NACO's recommendation and the community and the survey responses, yes. Apparently, we're doing commentary.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 501, appropriation to Tri-County Literacy Center. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 502, distribution to Family Service Association of Glens Falls. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild, Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 503, this distribution to Caritas, Inc., DBA Near Care. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover.
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 504, distribution to Greater Adirondack Home Health Aides. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier.
Yes.
Excuse me. Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino.
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 505, distribution to Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Happy, yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 506, distribution to Sky Farm Camp. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 507, distribution to Greater Glens Falls Senior Center. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover.
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 508, distribution to Research Foundation for the State University of New York. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
No.
Mr. Wild,
I'm sorry for clarity. This is 508, right?
Correct.
No. Thank you.
Mr. McGowan.
Yeah.
Ms. Seaver,
Recuse.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 509, distribution to High Peaks Hospice. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 510, distribution to World Awareness Children's Museum. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier,
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 512, this is the second distribution for High Peaks Hospice. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier. Yes. Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Mr. Merlino,
Yes.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 513, distribution to Adirondack Excursions. Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Mr. Conover,
No.
Mr. Leggett.
Yes.
Excuse me, Amanda,
You forgot.
you skipped. Ms.
I'm sorry, Ms. Runyon.
Yes.
I'm sorry, let me just back up and start over.
Okay.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
No.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover,
No.
Mr. Leggett,
Yes.
Mr. Diamond,
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Bruno,
No.
Mr. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier. Yes. Mr. Dickinson,
No.
Mr. Merlino,
No.
Mr. Wild,
No.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Seaver,
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Okay, that does pass with 598 votes in favor. Another and resolution 517. Authorizing appropriation of funds from the general fund unappropriated surplus account to various departmental budgets to cover equipment needs. Mr. Beatty.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Runyon. Yes. Mr. Conover.
Yes.
Mr. Leggett.
Yeah.
Mr. Diamond.
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt.
Yes.
Ms. Bramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bruno.
Yes.
Mr. Driscoll.
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier. Yes. Mr. Dickinson.
Yes.
Mr. Merlino.
Yes.
Mr. Wild.
Yes.
Mr. McGowan.
Yes.
Ms. Seaver.
Yes.
Chairman Garrity.
Yes.
Resolution passes. We Need a collective on.
Collective, all those in favor of the other resolution signify by saying aye. Opposed, carried. Okay.
I apologize, Ms. Runyon. That's okay.
Okay. Privilege of the floor, any public comment now? Privilege of the floor and any public comment? Please step up to the microphone.
Again, ADK Excursions here. I really do appreciate the commitment of the board and the due diligence that went through to this. Again, all our financials are in there. I'm a spreadsheet person, so we've got our financials, we've got our costs, we've got, and I'm excited to say we're moving forward to our next phase of our strategy, potentially buying some new boats next year with some small business loans. But again, this money, which again, we thank you for, is going to go towards safety improvements. So we greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to comment? Any announcements? You have an announcement?
Nope, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Just a question to the attorney. How far are we on the ethics board?
I can only address the action that was taken at the last board meeting, which appointed 3 primary and 1 alternate to the 5-member board. We attempted to schedule an immediate meeting to start working through some issues that have been waiting for the board to be reconstituted. Unfortunately, we could not get a quorum, which required all 3 members to be available. We are hoping to schedule a meeting toward the end of October, which will then be the first meeting of the newly constituted board.
Thank you.
I don't have any information on the status of the remaining 2 primary board member positions that are still open and unfilled.
Okay. Any announcements? Well, I'll announce that my neighbors to the west, I think it's to the west, Thurman is the fall farm tour starting.
Yeah.
Is that this
Saturday.
weekend?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Saturday.
and wish them all the best. The leaves are starting to turn up there, and I think you'd enjoy traveling on the back roads and enjoying those farms up there in Thurman, New York. So motion to adjourn. So wait, thank you.